Very good evening to everyone. We are here with yet another session with this journey exploration. And this session, we would like to invite Sharath Basavaraju, founder and principal of ATHA Yoga Living. He is an M.Sc in yoga, passionate in learning yoga. His education is from S-VYASA. He has been certified from S-VYASA, ERYT, 500 hours from Yoga Alliance USA. He is pursuing PhD in the division of yoga and management at S-VYASA. He has taught more than 10,000 hours across various platforms from classes in educational institutions, some of the best yoga schools in Bangalore, top fitness centers across India like Cult and MindFit, while also performing as a format head in the same organization. Apart from yoga, his keen interests are running, training, having participated and completed several runs ranging from 5 kilometers to half marathons over the past years. He is more than 10 years of experience in this industry. He is the founder of AthaYog. Now yoga begins, AthaYog Anusandhana. The first sloka of Patanjali, he has taken this forward, the journey with him. And his vision is to share this yogic learning and wellness tools with his perspective to guide people on their journey towards transformation. With this small introduction to you, I would like to invite on our platform and we'll start the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this program. And it's a really great opportunity for me to share my experiences to aspiring entrepreneurs, to aspiring people who want to enrich themselves in their career and in their lives. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. So we'll start our discussion with the first question. Because you have been in the different platforms, different curriculum of your life, like how you have been started. So my first question would you, how the journey of transformation begins in the field of yoga and with the vision of Swami Vivekananda?
Right. It's a very interesting question because it involves two very important aspects. One is yoga and another is Swami Vivekananda. And to answer this particular question, how does the transformation begin in the field of yoga? What I've seen, at least in my experience, and largely after being as a part of this journey for so long, yoga finds you at some point of time, because yoga is something that people try after doing many other things. Let's say, even if you want to take an example of a simple weight loss program, if somebody is on the goal to become more fitter, they would obviously want to try more activities like fitness activities, like hitting the gym or going for runs, swimming, other factors. And then, due to pros and cons of those results, they would eventually land up at yoga. And the same thing even happened to me. I was also looking to transform myself physically and mentally. Having tried many different activities, I finally found yoga. And although it was a very integral part of my life from my very childhood, I've seen my family members practice yoga. I've seen my grandfather practice yoga. In fact, he was my inspiration to start practicing yoga itself. And slowly I started gaining the curiosity of, what is the practice and why is it to be done like this, so on and so forth. And slowly, as I started exploring the aspects, I realized that, okay, yoga is not just about asanas, and yoga is not just about breathing exercises. It is much more than that. And as I got to know the practice, as I got to do it and implement the learnings that I had got from good teachers, the good schools of yoga that I had went to, it slowly started becoming a journey of exploration. So I reached till step 1 to get a view of step 2, reached till step 2 to get a view of step 3. In that way, I think the progress has been very, very, ascending in that way. And how Swami Vivekananda played a role in all of this is that most of us know that Swami Vivekananda is one of the greatest persons that the modern history considers, especially when we're coming to the spiritual part of it, the patriotic part of it. Swami Vivekananda has an array of characteristics. He was a philosopher, he was a political leader, he was a spiritual leader, he was a poet, he was a great orator, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, from a very young age, I was influenced by his teachings. I was a very integral part of the Ramakrishna mission and its missionary and its activities from a very young age. There's never been a day that I would wake up not reading a quote of Swami Vivekananda. And even though it never made sense to me in those very young ages, as I grew up, all these same sentences that I started reading started making more and more sense to me. And coupled with the knowledge of yoga, it started to make complete clarity and bring in complete direction into what I should be doing, especially pursuing this yogic journey, both as my career and as a life path. So I think these are the two main things that how has helped me progress. Yes, yoga has been a final call, but nonetheless, it has been the best call so far. And Swami Vivekananda's teachings has just, been a proof that, its guidance and his presence is always there with all of us. So I hope that was good enough for your first question, Bhavit.
Yeah, so my answer, like your answer was very clear and to the point. I have learned something from you in this. You have said the step by step you have learned first, second. When you got the first, you have seen the second.
That's
So
right.
this explains one of the Upanishad called Taittiriya Upanishad,
That's
where
right.
Bhrigu got the answers in the same way. So I can relate
Absolutely.
yourself that your journey begins in that way, and that is how yoga, that is what
Yeah,
yoga is. So
very
thank you so
true.
much with that explanation.
Yes.
And my second question would be that what was the first turning point in your life to think of yourself as a yogi or as a person to start with yoga? And in this modern era, because gym is the one, the thought comes first for
Mm.
fitness, not yoga. So what was that first turning point or thought process? Who inspired you? Something like that, the journey, how it began?
Sure. Right. As a very old and famous quoting, it says that, you cannot teach religion to a hungry stomach, right? And I think having those basic needs fulfilled was one of the most important aspects for me to start my journey as a yoga practitioner. I had a good home, I had good upbringing, I had good place to nourish myself. And I think those are the basic requirements for anybody to aspire anything, having their basic needs set. And at times when we find ourselves deprived of this, it is absolutely fine for us to wait it out and get ourselves in our position before we can start, progressing ahead. Because the first Yoga Sutra itself, it mentions AthaYog Anushasanam. Now yoga begins. To some level, I understand that Patanjali actually wanted to incur some kind of eligibility before anybody could practice yoga. A simple example, he could have just said yoga anushasana. That could have been the first sutra, but he said now yoga begins. Atha yoga anushasana, which means there is a certain eligibility, there is a certain now that we need to attain before we can start walking up that path. So I feel having a sound mind, having a sound body were the most important factors for me to consider, this part of the journey into yoga. But nonetheless, how it started for me is that I was trying to recover from an injury, and I was very formally introduced to yoga as a part of therapy to recover from my injury. And slowly, as I recovered completely, I could not let go of the practice, and it completely stuck onto me. Going forward and learning newer things and newer aspects, it just started reflecting in physical and mental well-being. But after a certain point of time, with the right kind of people around you, the right kind of communication, and the right kind of guidance, I started realizing that yoga can not only just be a part of my life as practice, but also can be a very strong career orientation point. And at that time, it was when I started digging deeper into understanding this subject formally, which is why, as I was continuing my practice as a yoga aspirant, as a yoga student, I constantly kept learning about what yoga is. It can be just reading basic commentaries of the Yoga Sutras or listening to few lectures or attending a few satsangs. And every single thing that I heard in all of these or I read in all of these experiences started instilling that this is not something that I have to have in my life. This is something that I have to be in my life. So that moment was when the transformation started happening. The moment I realized that yoga is not a part of your life, yoga is your life. You need to ensure that we're following those strong principles that we've been clearly given by the various teachers of yoga for us to start ascending in that direction. So I think the more and more I learned about yoga, the more and more I discovered that this is the actual right lifestyle that one should be living. Even though if it is a 5,000-year-old science, it is so flexible that it can be easily implemented and easily got into anybody's life, even in today's 21st century. So more learnings about the subject got me the turning point, I would say, Bhavit.
So thank you again. Why? Because I'm learning with every questions one of the Yoga Sutras, because this questions answered the be and make, what Swami
Yes,
Vivekananda says. Your
absolutely.
answers were giving me that kind of perspective. First gave me about the Taittiriya Upanishad, second about the Swami Vivekananda saying, first you be and then you make people around you.
Very true. Very
So
true.
with the same journey, I would like to have third questions. What were the
Mhm.
difficulties you faced during this journey of yoga? It's not easy journey, but how it would be formulated you.
Right. This is a very, very important question because it talks about difficulties, it talks about obstacles, challenges that you face. And just a quick, just short quotation I want to share from one of my favorite actors, South Indian actor. I'm sure most of you all know him throughout the world and the country. His name is Rajnikant. And very famously, even he's also known to practice yoga, especially Kriya Yoga, and be a very spiritually desired person. And he says in one of his speeches that, Sodana Vandada Sadhana Varo, which means only if you're confronted by challenges can you actually reach success. And I feel at this moment, not just in yoga, but in any field, as a sportsman, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a teacher, as anybody who you are, we are bound to challenges. We are bound to face difficulties. And the few difficulties that I faced initially as a yoga practitioner was adapting to the lifestyle, what has been mentioned in the yogic scriptures, or the things that a yoga practitioner must diligently follow. Things like waking up early, finding the right time to practice, finding the right place to practice, having good teachers to learn from. These were few difficulties that I experienced during my journey, but I was very easy to overcome all of this because the best part about yoga is that it not only gives you an array of solutions, but it also gives us specific problems and how we need to deal with those problems. Some basic things that we experience in our day-to-day lives. We experience laziness, we experience tiredness, sometimes mental distress. And this is not something that only you and I are experiencing in the 21st century. This is something that mankind has been experiencing from the very initiation of this human life. And there have been so many, sutras, so many references to, things like sadhaka tattva, which means your success factors, badhaka tattvas, the things which are going to cause you failure. And these are all mentioned very systematically in the yogic books like the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, the Yoga Sutras, so on and so forth. As you want to make yourself a better yogi, you need to start abiding by these rules. And I think the most challenging part for me was to start abiding by these rules. And nonetheless, like I mentioned, with the right guidance, with the right information, it slowly started becoming an easier way of life to get adapted into this. After a certain point of time, what I realized and I did was I kept yoga as the center of my life and I changed everything else around it. So if I had to wake up, I would wake up at the time when I have to be conveniently available for my yoga practice. If I had to plan my day or schedule meetings, I would ensure that it is outside my practice time or outside of my time that I'm dedicating for my spiritual sadhana. So in this way, there were challenges and it was overcome very systematically, and it is something that all of us should go through because that is what is acts like the stepping stone for us to reach the success factors. So yes, that's about how the difficulties were faced and how this journey of yoga had been challenging, but nonetheless it's getting better by the day.
So again, once again, the answers you give, it gives me a learning also during this discussion. So again, you said about karma yoga. The mention of what you said, that everything revolves around yoga. It does not mean yoga means only asanas or pranayama.
Absolutely.
The day you perform as a yoga, it's also a yoga. So again, you said the whole aspects of karma yoga in your answers. So I'm astonished to continue my discussion with you with my next
Right.
question, which is, how do you think yoga education is transformed in terms of spiritual context to correlate with the actual science, the medical science?
um, right, I think this is quite a technical question and it needs to be given time for us to understand this question. Very, very nicely framed. How do you think yoga education is transformed in terms of spiritual context to correlate with science? Today, we have universities giving yoga degrees, giving yoga PhDs, which I'm pursuing myself. And it has become a subjective knowledge. Today, it is people consider yourself as a yoga practitioner, or you can identify yourself as a yogi, not if you've meditated for so many hours, not if you've done so much of tapas or sadhana, but let's say if you've done a certificate program, let's say if you can do certain asanas or perform certain shatkarma practices, and if you're just mastered these few things in yoga, today you are considered as a yogi. But it is very unfortunate for us to follow that system, because how people got the title of yogi back in the ancient times, or how people got the title of rishi or acharya or guru, this has been a really critical factor about how yoga has transformed from its true essence. Initially, not just yoga, but all the Vedic scriptures or any of those education systems were brought down through the Gurukula system. And today, with the intervention of technology, with globalization, with modernization, there is so much of change that has been driven into the basics of education itself. And when we're considering, how do we correlate yoga education as a field of spiritual science, and how is it very correlating to the field of medical science today, or to the field of science today, is quite a very intriguing factor, because most of us understand yoga just as an asana practice, just as something that we do to keep ourselves healthy. Most of us are shallow in our thinking that yoga is just for good health. But very few of us have understood, or very few people know the fact that yoga is not just a health science, it is a spiritual science. The end goal is to attain that spiritual highness, that spiritual liberation, or whatever you want to call it, in whichever context you want to understand it. But nonetheless, we need to understand that yoga is a spiritual practice. Although it has immense number of health benefits, better functioning of the body physically, physiologically, mentally. These are all just, the benefits that you get as you go up the journey. And today, to a large extent, many people are only sticking to this for one simple reason, because it is easily marketable. Yoga for weight loss, yoga for stress management, yoga for cancer. In this way, we have kind of like commodified yoga and put it into a single capsule without allowing the people to expand the awareness that, it is not just for you to recover from your health, but what to do once you have recovered from your health. Because Swami Vivekananda rightly said that, the goal of this human life is to manifest that divinity. And you can do that by doing karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, or raja yoga. Most commonly, what we see today is raja yoga, control of body and mind. What we perform in asanas, pranayama, meditation, this would come under the category of raja yoga. A lot of people just limit it to just getting themselves healthy, but don't want to go beyond making themselves just more than healthy. It is not just the absence of diseases, it has to be physical well-being, mental well-being, moral well-being, self-moral well-being, social well-being, and most importantly, spiritual well-being. As long as science can be able to correlate to topics in spirituality, I think we're going in the right direction. Because today, everyone requires proof. We live in a very, very informed society, if I may. You want to know anything, just with type of few buttons and a click of a button, you'll be able to know whatever you want to. So it is very critical for us yoga teachers, for us yoga propagators, to not just quote constantly from the scriptures, but also have some kind of evidence, some kind of modern evidence to support our theories. Because it is very important that the generation in the future has strong points of reference for them to walk this path of yoga. That is what I would say, the correlation between yoga education and how science can be a factor together, Bhavid.
So again, this question answers what we are having this journey of discussion, gives me another learning from AthaYog Pradipika. You said it's all benefit, yoga for
Yes.
weight loss, obesity. So if anyone who is listening to this talk, if you go through the introduction, not the chapter, introduction of AthaYog Pradipika, there are 20 question answers are there. In that, one of the answer is that, okay, it's the benefit we are enjoying in a therapeutic part, but not the actual yoga. So if actual yoga and the benefit goes hand in hand, what you said very in a projected way, so then it would be good. So once
Sure.
again, that's what the refreshment of all the yogi knowledges and the books you are giving in this talk. So my next question would be, now we come to the current journey of yours, the Atha Yoga.
Mhm.
The idea of Atha Yoga for transformation of people's life to a holistic approach. How it came to your mind? What was the idea? Because Atha Yoga, it comes from the Patanjali Sutra, and I believe Patanjali is a master of, like, he created the whole yoga in equation format. Like you can PhD with every
That's right.
every equation. So like you have done equation of first sutra in your whole journey. So I wanted to understand that.
Yes. It's a very, very nice question, and I'm sure a very sweet question, because it takes me down back to memory lane to, get out all of the beautiful things that I wanted to do, that I'm doing, that I still want to continue doing as a part of AthaYog living. So this idea was not at all there in my head, actually. Truly, even I never found myself that I'll be having a career so strong in the yogic field, because honestly, I'm a banker and I started my career in banking. And eventually, I just was practicing yoga. And at some point of time, I got some opportunity to do a yoga course. And the moment I was inducted to the course, after I started learning why do we do these asanas, what is the benefit of these asanas, so on and so forth, it just got me intrigued to learn more and more. And as a part of that particular course, there was a topic, a very special topic known as the business of yoga. And it was there in that course curriculum, wherein the faculty members and the people who were a part of the course took a small workshop on how can we keep a career strong enough by using yoga as a tool. So basically, they gave us insights on, we can open our yoga center, we can be freelance yoga teachers, we can be consultants, so on and so forth. I think the nurturing of the idea started way back at that moment, back in those classroom sessions, wherein we were trying to understand the business of yoga. And slowly and steadily, as I started building my career as a yoga teacher, and then I started working in the same organization to help them in their marketing and to help them in their reach out to people to come and practice yoga. So it was a very traditional organization, and I got to learn all the basics of how a good yogic organization should be running. And nonetheless, even though it was profit driven, there was no deterioration of the integrity of the yogic knowledge. And nonetheless, after that, I went on to shift to another organization where I continued to learn. But this was a little more in the corporate setup. It was a large scale of fitness institutions. And there, how they were using the same yoga to, give it to a large number of people. What are the techniques they were using? What are the corporate tools they were using? All of these things gave me a vast learning in both the traditional way and in the more modern way as well. And it was at that moment when I realized that, okay, I have strongly come ahead in my journey as a yoga teacher. And I knew that this is not enough. Just doing a certificate course, or just a 200-hour or 300-hour program will not suffice for me to give myself good credit as a yoga teacher. So I went on to do a master's program in SVYASA University, wherein I studied various subjects of yoga. And the moment I was completed that program, I was really happy with the fact that I had so much of knowledge, not just in the yogic perspective, but also I am a graduate in management. I also have a management perspective. So now all I had to do is put the two together, along with my education in both the commerce and the science background, and more importantly, with my work experience in a very traditional organization and a very modern organization. And it was at that time when I was trying to bridge the gap. There were many things that were there in the traditional organization that were missing in the modern organization. And there were many things that were there in the modern organization that were missing in the traditional organization. And when I was thinking, when I was penning down thoughts about, how do I open an academy which can bridge both of this? This is how AthaYog came into existence. Provide a modern facility, provide the best facilities, but without compromising the importance of the true yogic or the true authentic knowledge of yoga. And which is why I chose a very strong name, AthaYog Anushasanam. Like you mentioned, it is the first Yoga Sutra. AthaYog is the name, and Atha means now, Yog means union. And even if you translate it, it just comes as now Yog begins. And the reason why we chose this as a title is yoga can be done anytime. anywhere, in spite of whatever age or whatever condition that you are in. Now you can start practicing yoga. Even at this moment, if you feel that you want to start practicing, now yoga begins for you. And to have that strong, positive, constantly progressive expression, we kept it as AthaYog living. That's how the entire idea of bringing this holistic approach started developing, Bhavit.
I'm very interested because this discussion is going in such a way that exploration of myself is also happening, and the people who will listen to this, they should have a different kind of perspective to what you said. What I understood is that you have taken the business aspect of yoga to the traditional market and giving the knowledge, saying that the traditional context should be presented in a business way in the current era. So it's like classroom knowledge to your market knowledge. You have combined as an integrated format. And one more thing you said, that not sufficient to do only 200 hours, 300 hours of yoga.
Yes.
I am very much concerned with the people who just stick themselves with one certificate and say we are yogi. I do not think so. You have to continue your journey as a medical doctor, because every doctor will go every day, they read a lot, update themselves. Same thing goes to the yoga field also. They should not restrict after learning one kriya, I have done, I am yogi. So that would not work. In spite of that much of your certificates would not help. That's why my point to discuss with you, that you have not stopped yourself. Till now, you are doing your work with your education, which is required to everyone.
Right.
So thanks for that, because you are giving that the bridge in your current journey also.
Yes.
So how do you manage yourself as a multitasking person? Because that's my personal question to you, and with whom you get inspired or motivated every day to do all these activities.
Right. I've always been a multifunctional person, I would say, even since my childhood. I was always exposed to a lot of opportunities, and I always made sure that I made use of these opportunities. Whether I'm successful or not is a different question, but the thing is that we've tried. So that spree in me kept me going into experiencing many things, learning many things, giving attempts at many things. So I think that curiosity kept building more and more, and that helped me cultivate this habit as becoming a multitasker. And it is not easy to be a multitasker because, like the word itself suggests, multitasking, any task requires energy, right? And when you're doing it multiple times or doing multiple tasks at once, it requires a lot of energy, and not just a lot of energy, but a lot of focused energy when you're even multitasking. So I think I take care of myself really well. I eat well, I exercise well, I get good rest. I ensure that I'm with the right people. I invest time with the right people around me. And also I have a very supportive family and team members back at work who allow me to be a multitasker. They put me up to challenges. They allow me to think on my feet. They see I'm constantly tested by my team to see if you're working well. And the inspiration to all of this, I think it would go back to Swami Vivekananda, because he is such a great man, and I think a very recent yogi. We just celebrated a few days back his 161st birth anniversary, and 160 years is not a very long time back if you actually think about it, whereas yoga is something that has existed over 5,000 years old. And if this man 150 or 160 years ago could use those same learnings 5,000 years back and could revolutionize the world at just the age of 39, imagine what is it that you and I are having the potential of. And it says right here, discover your own potential, when reading the tagline of Own Your Growth. And that is exactly what even Swami Vivekananda says. He says, you have infinite potential within you. You can do anything and everything. All you have to do is that faith in the work you're doing, the purity, patience, and the perseverance of constantly doing what you want to do. And I think I draw my inspiration very strongly from the words of Swami Vivekananda, and it is his energy or his power that is keeping us going, not just for me in my daily life, but also for me at the organization, for all of us at our organization. I'd say he's a really, really big source of inspiration. And I'd like to mention one very important factor. that, there is no better time to be influenced by Swami Vivekananda's teachings apart from now. Because 150 years back, the people were youthful. And now are the youths? It's you and me. Our Indian subcontinent has the average age of people being between 25 to 45, which means we are the youth. You and I are the youths of our nation. And there is no other better time to be inspired, to be influenced, and to grasp onto Swami Vivekananda's learnings, if not now, because his teachings were very, very specific for the minds of the people between your age and my age.
Thank you. So you have used many things in this answers. I think everyone should go through the biography of Swami Vivekananda. If you want to change yourself, just read the story, how he was. You does not require any other book to improve yourself or motivate yourself. I have motivated by him because in the course of YAC, what SVYASA provides, during that period of time, there was a class 5 to 6 where they used to teach only the journey of how the Swami Vivekananda's born, and he was connected to Ramakrishna Paramahansa. That journey inspired me a lot. Till today, I'm just connected with that journey. And we are just 1%. If I reach there, I'll be happy. So with that, I would like everyone to read that book of his journey. Just read about it. You will have so many experiences in your life. So with this, what would be your suggestion to the students who are pursuing their career in the field of yoga, or they are there in this field of yoga?
Right. My biggest suggestion would be is to, first of all, learn from the right places, learn from the right teachers, learn from the right institutions, and check for the lineage of, who's teaching you, and check for how successful have the participants who are doing it from the institution that you're going to be learning from, how successful are they? And also a little credibility about your teachers and how they have progressed in their journey of yoga has to be considered at some point. So I would say learn from the right places, first of all, to start off with, for anybody who's looking to start their career as a yoga professional, or yoga teacher, or yoga consultant. It is very important that you are particular about the knowledge where you can bring it from. And the three things you need to check the lineage, who was the teacher, who was their teacher, who was their teacher. Try to track back at least 3 to 4 lineages, or 3 to 4 generations of teaching that proves that it has a strong knowledge base. And second thing is, like I mentioned, check how long the institution has been existing. Is it just something that opened up, in the modern era, just 2-3 years back, or is it a traditional organization? What are the values it follows, and how successful has the organization been? And third and most important thing to check where you have to learn from is go through the alumni, go through the people who have come there, who have studied there. What are they doing today? Have they been prosperous? Has coming to that institution made any difference in their lives? So these 3 questions must be very critically answered before you choosing the place where you can learn. Now, once you've learned, it's not just the bookish knowledge or the practices that you do on your mat, but more importantly, those things that you need to implement is very, very important. The yoga subject is a value-based education system, right? You have to not just read about those values, but rather inculcate those values into your day-to-day lives. Only then can you call yourself a yoga practitioner, or even a yoga teacher for that matter. So learn it, implement whatever you are learning is very, very important. And the third and most important thing is, especially for those who want to become teachers, those who want to aspire themselves as yoga teachers, qualify yourself well. Qualify yourself by educating yourself, by doing your practice well, and start teaching to people who maybe your friend circle, your family circle. If you're going to an institution, maybe just a few people in those institutions before you can try a larger crowd or so on. And the most important thing, not just for anybody who is in the yogic journey, but I would say this message is for anybody in any career-oriented factor in today's world, is that please don't come with high expectations. I would like to identify this very particular point, about, if you can give me a moment. Today's generation, I want to call it as the entitled generation. What is entitled? Entitled means you are eligible for something. You are going to be given something. So I feel because of globalization and because of the intervention of technology, a lot of changes in the education system, the work culture, and the society around us, what it has done to the young minds of our country is that they have made them entitled for certain things. Now, for example, somebody finishes, let's say, an undergraduation program and walks into a campus interview. They come with all the audacity in front of the HR and they just demand things like, I want this much, I want a 6-digit salary, I want a 7-digit salary, and so on and so forth. But they fail to understand the fact that people who are earning that much today had to toil their life day in and day out to be able to get what they are getting. And because of so many, probably not very successful, not 100% successful shortcuts, but maybe here and there through few shortcuts, there have been a few people who've made it to the top without putting this much of hard work. But what we need to identify is maybe they at least got lucky. And if luck does not work, what are you going to do? So you have to start preparing yourself, slowly start nurturing yourself to be able to creating that demand rather than just saying, I need to be paid this much. I need this position. I want this title. I want to be called as managing director. No, you'll have to work your way through it. You'll have to put in hard work, go through experiences. Only then all of that will make sense. Because right now, let's say if you finish some course and if I directly put you as, let's say, a CEO of an organization, believe me, you're not going to be knowing anything about head or tail about how to run that organization because you've completely missed the growth scale. What I'm saying as an advice to all of y'all is don't miss that growth scale. Start your career. Start your career as an associate. Grow up to being a teacher or a senior teacher or an assistant professor or a senior professor or the dean. And then when you know that you are having so much experience, naturally it will all come to you. Whether you want to be a great teacher, whether you want to be everybody's boss, or whether you want to have a high position in any scale that you want to, please make sure that you go through those steps of growth. There is no shortcut to growth. And like the name of this very strong institution suggests, you have to own your growth. You cannot just take somebody's growth and just say that this is what I want. So that's about how, and just a few things that I would want to suggest to the aspiring students or the aspirants of a career.
What you have mentioned, I think I have got the management class today in terms of my life. It's not about the actual management class, but it's about my life. And we listen to many people. There are many people outside who give talks. But why I relate with you? Because I see you are doing it, practicality of it. So when any person, anyone who is near to you and you see the practicality of their learning in them, I think you can connect with them, you can learn with them. So I can relate with you with all these factors, what you have said. And I have seen these people of entitlement. I get few references saying that I need 40K job. I is like, I'm also junior and I am in the same age. I do not ask that. If I get something which I deserve, that is best for me. But the entitlement is a very much big factor, not even in one field, every field.
Very true. That's true.
It's a very big issue and we do not take care of that. Means long journey is not there. And if you start with the low, like 6,000, 10,000, 15,000, I know you know the value of 15,000. So when the 10 lakh will come in your pocket, you know what is the use of that 10
Absolutely.
lakh.
Absolutely.
So that we miss, even our generation miss. So thanks for that. So I would like to have a conclusion today with one shloka of how can I represent to you this. Apuryamana achala pratistam samudra mapam pravishanti yadvata tadvat kamaha yam pravishanti sarve sa shanti mapnoti na kam kame. I can relate with you this shloka, this chapter 2, verse 70 of Bhagavad Gita. Your knowledge, our knowledge is like an ocean, remains undisturbed by the flow of waters which comes to the rivers merging into it. Likewise, the sage who is unmoved despite the flow of desirable objects all around him attains peace, and not the person who strives to satisfy their desires. It's about the Vivekananda, and you follow him as very well in your life. So I give this shloka and I learn from you with this shloka that how the stability of your understanding comes from, and have learned few things from this session. And I want to specify here, and I want everyone to know what are the things. So first of all, he has covered his knowledge or his discussion from the scriptures. As I mentioned, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Taittiriya Upanishad, Hatha Yoga, and so on, Bhagavad Gita also. Second, he said about the yoga to follow, inculcated as a life process, not to follow only asanas and pranayama. Third, you have to be limit yourself, not limit, like you have to become the model of evidence in the science of yoga, which is missing with many people. Then you should not be sufficient yourself with one certificate, two certificate. Learning is continuous, and yoga is a vast knowledge. You can't finish in this whole life. I don't think so. You can finish in this 60, 70 years of your life. It is a continuous process. Authentic knowledge. Being a person who is running an institute, he's saying the authenticity should be there. So when he itself is saying means you should follow this. Patience, and the path should be continuous, and you should not be entitled with any kind of format. Your experience, your knowledge will give you your entitled whatever you're looking for. So with these points, what I've understood, and everyone can relate with all these points, would make sense and should go through your session, your talk, because it means a lot for all of us to understand from you. So any final thoughts to all of us?
I think it's been a great opportunity for me to be able to share a few thoughts of my journey so far. And it's very important for all of us at this time to be very, very critical about what the things that we are doing, because there are so many easy ways that we can be distracted and unnecessarily put into a state of competition, a state of deprivation, so on and so forth. And let's be critical in analyzing what is useful for us, what is not useful for us, by this great power that we only humans have. And it is called in the yogic terms as the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellectual factor. Before doing any work, maybe just, even eating or going for a meeting, just for a moment, just sit back and think, is this going to be useful for me? And how can I make it more useful for me? I think I will leave you all to ponder upon those thoughts, and hopefully get to speak to all of you all in another session some other time. Thank you so much, Bhavit, for this opportunity. And I'm really glad I could share my thoughts.
Thank you. Namaste, everyone. And thank you for your time to share this thought, because it is very valuable for all of us. And hope this session will use to any student. If 10 students are turning up with your thoughts, my job and your job is done. So this is what we would like to finish it off. Thank you. Thank you so much to come on our platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you.